Hello, and welcome to Cinema Reel-Ness Side Escapes movie theme show. My name is Maddie Atlee, and each week on Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube, me and a friend will discuss a random movie topic. I'm joined this week by my guest and my boyfriend, Jake Burke.
Hi, girlfriend Maddie.
Hi.
Hi.
And the topic of this week is favorite movies.
Ooh.
Ooh.
5 movies.
Yes,
right?
top 5.
Yes.
Top 5
Okay,
favorite.
cool. Just making sure.
I brought
So, Maddie, you wrote how many? 50?
50. We're going to have to narrow it down a lot.
Wow, that's a long list. Fun fact, I use this this app called GG. It's very similar to Letterboxd, but for video games. And I ranked my top 50 video games.
Oh, wow.
It took a very long time. I had too much time on my hands.
Is that the one you did last year? That like app on your phone where it's like every movie you saw?
Yeah, Letterboxd.
It's
really good.
Yeah, it sounds really good.
I like it.
I'm surprised someone who's hosting a cinema podcast doesn't have that, and someone who's hosting a video game podcast does have that.
That's true, but I also have the video game one, so it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. I need to
check out the Side Escape Gaming podcast on YouTube.com.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, of course. All right, let's get into it. I'm excited.
Are you excited?
Yeah. Do you want me to go first, or would you like you to go first?
Sure. You go first.
Okay. You didn't answer the question.
I did.
No, you did. Okay.
Now it's
I'll start with my number 5.
Number 5.
My 5th favorite movie of all time is actually the reason that you and I met.
Oh.
My 5th favorite movie of all time is Back to the Future. As you know, I dressed as Marty McFly when you first met me, and I looked very good. For the reason Back to the Future is my 5th favorite movie, is Back to the Future, I think, is a almost perfectly written movie. Mm-hmm. It is a textbook thing of how to set something off and pay it off, doing a setup and payoff kind of deal in a script. Yeah. And everything that is set up in the 80s before it goes to the 50s about the town, his uncle being in prison, like every little detail to the major details of how his parents met and everything, is just a fantastic setup payoff. And then, of course, the 2 characters of Doc and Marty they're just great. It's like this weird friendship that doesn't ever need to be explained, because it's very odd that this 17-year-old boy hangs out with like a 70-year-old crazy scientist.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, but it works. And
it does, yeah.
I think that the scene, and it's a testament to this movie, is the scene where he's trying to connect the 2 plugs to send Marty back to the future.
Yeah.
Is so well directed that even watching it for the 100th and 50th time when I watch that movie, I'm like, I still get anxious of like, is Doc going to be able to connect the thing? Like, how does he do it in time? And that's just like a test how well directed that just one sequence is, along with the whole movie. And it's got Power of Love in it, and it's got fantastic. Some sweet bangers in it, and then Johnny Be Good, and I love it when I say banger. But
why do you do that? Why?
And of course, it has a great iconic theme song of bam, bam, so
yeah,
good. I almost sang the Avengers theme song, but that was close.
Did. It sounded like you're good. That's what you're going into.
It's pretty similar theme song. So
yes, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was my 5th favorite movie.
All right. Number 5 for me is the first Pirates movie.
Oh.
Yeah. I think I love it. I mean, growing up as kids, me and my siblings used to watch like the first 3 Pirates movies all the time. We can forget about the other ones. They're not good. But the first 3 are really, that's what we grew up like watching all the time. And I just think it's so like, even though Johnny Depp, not a good person as we have found out,
right.
But back then, everyone loved him. And then he like comes up with this revolutionary character. So revolutionary that he got nominated for an Oscar for it, which is
crazy.
When does like a character like that ever get nominated for an Oscar? Yeah. Never. Like, it's just like, I think people kind of forget about like when that movie came out, how like groundbreaking it kind of was in some ways. Like, we've talked about it before. What's the test with like it has to pass like the
Bechdel test?
The Bechdel test?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were telling me like the Pirates movie was like one of the first like women action movies that kind of have that like scene.
Yeah, basically the Bechdel test is 2 women talking on screen for more than, I think it's like 5 lines, or in a play, that their subject of conversation doesn't have to do with a man at all. So like what they're dealing with does not have to do with a man in the plot or anything man related.
Right. And that happens in this movie. It happens with Keira Knightley when she's talking to the captain of one of the ships, and she's just like they're talking about how they're gonna like defeat Barbossa and his like first mates. And I think as like a little girl, like that also meant like a lot to me to see like kind of like a strong woman character in those kind of movies, because I always liked those kinds of movies when I was young, but I never saw myself in that.
Right.
So like I think that's also why like I really love those movies, and I just love the comedy. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, bro, Back to the Future is fantastic. Or not Back to the Future, Pirates. Back to the Future is still fantastic.
Right now.
No, Pirates of the Caribbean is fantastic. We actually just watched it recently.
We did, yes.
But it's amazing like how much that movie holds up, and it's a very fun movie. I love the final fight between him and Barbossa. And Barbossa is a genuinely great bad guy because he's you also just love to watch him. So I think Pirates of the Caribbean is well deserved to be on there, and it has a kick-ass theme song too.
It does.
So
good theme music. Pretty cool.
Going to be a theme throughout most of this whole list, I'm sure. So no, I do love it, and Orlando Bloom's great in it as well.
Yeah,
and so it's got a great cast of characters.
Yeah, it really does. They're just like all very unique and lovable, and like you feel really attached to them quickly.
Yeah,
and I think like the surprising thing is they make that based off of a ride at Disneyland. Like
it is an amazing thing.
Yeah, it's like that's where the inspiration comes from, like a ride. Like I don't know, I think it's pretty crazy. All right. Crazy. You're number 4.
Number 4 is Empire Strikes Back. Star Wars. I love Star Wars. I don't know if you knew this about me. No. Maddie Atlee, I'm a crazy Star Wars fan. And Empire Strikes Back is probably the best Star Wars movie. Fun fact, it's not my favorite Star Wars movie, so there will be a Star Wars movie again on my list.
You can learn about that in a Side Escape Ranks.
Boom, on youtube.com right now. But Star Wars Empire Strikes Back is... I'm going to use the word perfect a lot because I think obviously we're talking about our favorite movies. But despite another movie on my list, I think it's the best sequel of all time. I think that Empire Strikes Back takes everything about Star Wars that was great and it utilizes it in a new way and then flips it on its head. I think nowadays, you and I grew up in the world where it already existed and Star Wars was just these 3 movies that were a thing. And so we weren't used to... We've never lived in a world where it just was one movie that then got this sequel. Yeah. And Empire took the stakes of Star Wars, which was this very good versus evil, and had that good versus evil, but then the evil won. And like we forget that there is a movie where like Han Solo basically dies in our eyes until we know that he's not. Luke loses his hand, finds out the main bad guy is his dad, and that the guy's not lying. And like they're losing, they've lost. And it's this perfect act 2 to a story, and then to have to wait 3 years to figure out what's going to happen next is crazy. Like if you watch that movie, it's like, how are they going to win? They got nothing. And I think that's really special. And Empire just it expands Star Wars a lot. It adds Yoda, it adds Cloud City, it adds the Emperor, and everything kind of what we loved about Star Wars became something greater. So I think it's arguably, I think it is a better movie than the first one, but it's not my favorite because
Yeah.
No, so that makes Empire Strikes Back.
Yes, Empire Strikes Back.
God, what a scene. It's got hot. It's got a cool like ice planet scene. Let's just talk about Empire Strikes Back. Right, sorry.
No, this is my podcast. We're not doing that. Okay. My number 4 is The King's Speech. I think that's a really, really great movie. I think because I tend to like dramas personally. Ironically enough, though, most of my top 5 are not dramas that are my favorite. But that's like the genre I tend to gravitate towards. Like that's what I want to watch if I'm going to watch a movie. But I think what's incredible about it is like I think Colin Firth, his performance is insane. I don't know. Like I can't describe it. Like I'm just genuinely baffled when I see him. Like to the point when like I kind of like forgot that he was Colin Firth. Like when I was watching him, his like stutter and like his mannerisms are just so like unlike what you see him in other movies. And I just like, I thought that was like a testament to like how excellent he was in that. Like you just like kind of forget that it's Colin Firth and you think like he naturally has this like stutter. I also love like historical pieces. And so the World War II, and then that's like, I always like movies like that too. I like World War II, World War I movies. And then I just like love the subtle comedy of it too. Like it's not
Yeah.
supposed to be funny, but there's like little funny scenes where you're like, that's real weird. Like the scene when he's like having him curse. So like to forget his stutter.
That's a
It's
great
just
one.
like slew of these curse words and it's hilarious. And you don't
Yeah.
like, and then I think you just kind of like, I don't know, World War II, like us like being, in the United States, we learn about like the American involvement in World War II. Like you don't really learn about like kind of like what the British went through, especially
Yeah.
because, like they were like kind of like on the front lines basically for like, it was like they were coming. The next step for Germany was to come to the UK. So
Right.
like you don't really learn about that. And I think this movie, because it came out when we were in high school, or I was in high school. I think you were.
I was in high school.
Oh, you were in high school.
The same year The Social Network came out.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But that was like kind of like my first experience learning about like that other perspective of World War II, and that like he was so nervous because like it's literally like there's nothing between them now, and
yeah,
and and then the fact that like I never understood that he was like forced to take on like the kingship like in that way. So that was just all really interesting too.
it's a good movie.
It is.
Great acting. 2 of your movies too. Jeffrey Rush.
I know. I just noticed that as I was.
That's
speaking.
So great. I hope he's in all 5.
He's not.
I don't think I can name another Jeffrey Rush movie. I don't know.
I have like a couple that come to my mind, but I don't know what they're called.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
he's a great actor. My number 3.
Yes.
Is Star Wars: A New Hope. Big surprise. Boom. It's right. Either something with Empire and Star Wars. You could take them, you could flip them on any day, and I probably wouldn't know the difference. Mm-hmm. One's a 99.9 and one's a 99.8. But the original Star Wars is my first memory. I think it kind of made me who I am, and I would not be the same without the original Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And I saw it when I was 3 years old in a movie theater when they re-released them, and just it took me to another world, and it still does to this day every time I watch it. We went to Galaxy's Edge a few days ago, or like a week and a half ago, and having it be there was like, I'm in Star Wars. That's what that movie did for me as a kid. And it still does to this day. The characters are great. The introduction of how fast they introduce everything is great.
Yeah.
And of course, it's fucking Star Wars. And at 1977, which I wasn't alive for, it changed how movies were made. And they're still, because of Star Wars is how we're getting these Marvel movies and how they're made. Like that didn't exist before then.
Yeah.
So it took like pulp action and made it different. So Star Wars is fucking cool.
No, it is. Star Wars is fucking cool. Sorry.
I want a shirt that says that. Star Wars is fucking cool.
Star Wars is fucking cool.
All right. What's your number 3, Madeline?
So my number 3 is Little Women, which is not the newer one, the older one. And I think so I actually want to go back and watch the newer one again, because I feel like that maybe they'll switch. But the first one that was made in like 1994 with like Winona Ryder and stuff, for me, like that's like my sister and my mom and I always like watched that together. And it was like, it wasn't quite Christmas yet, but we kind of wanted to watch like a similar Christmas movie in that like holiday aspect. And so that's what we would watch. And I really loved the characters and how I just love that like sisterly bond, because I feel like that's not explored a lot in movies. Mm-hmm. And I always loved that. Like, and I always really related to Jo, how like she is in this, she's put in this box of this traditional female role, but she doesn't want to be. And she's like striving and trying her hardest to be outside of that box. But she's finding, that especially back then, like it was post Civil War, and she's trying to be a writer. Women weren't allowed to write. Like it was very rarely they were published, or they'd have to take like a man's name. And so she's trying, and she's seeing how hard this is, but she's determined and she won't give up. And then she creates like this masterpiece that like lasts throughout time, and I just think it's really a good movie. And yeah, I've read
never
the book
seen it
too.
Yeah,
so
no.
Oh my God.
My girlfriend's never showed me it, so whatever.
Oh,
but no, it's a movie I've always wanted to see, and now that there's the new one that came out with Greta Gerwig, and watching the Oscars and all the clips from it, it's like, oh, I really want to see this movie.
Yeah.
So I would be curious to watch it and then go back and watch the original as well.
Yes.
I think that's very fun.
Yeah, no, it would be really cool because I really love what Greta Gerwig did with it too, like putting this new spin on it, and like her writing is really incredible, as like you saw in the clips like at the
Mhm.
Oscars. Like she takes these traditional roles, but she somehow creates them modern and relatable to like today's women too.
Yeah.
But she is not like super in your face about it. It's like if you want to, you could be like kind of like naive and just be like, oh, they're talking about this time period, right? Like, but it's like no, like there's been a lot of progress that's been made since this time period, but there's still even more to be like that needs
Yeah.
to happen. And I think that's what's really cool about what she did with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number
Okay.
two.
Number two, go.
So my second movie is every movie on my list besides this movie is a sci-fi fantasy film.
Yes.
But I think favorite and best movies, there's a different kind of category for them.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite is like this personal thing, where best is obviously like the best movie, right? Which
Right.
is, good Godfather or Citizen Kane or whatever. But in
Definitely.
my opinion, my next movie is the best movie ever made. I think it has the best screenplay,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it has the best few performances. Good Will Hunting is my number two.
Yeah.
It's the only like drama that I think I like would consider being in my top five ever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's a movie that I watched when I was kind of young, and coming from someone that has a disorder, and then watching someone with a lot of potential also have some disorder, and obviously his disorder is different, based in mine. But
Mm-hmm.
um, having this character of Will going through these trials and tribulations of being so much smarter than everyone else, but
Mm-hmm.
having so much damage that he's afraid to like chase after his full potential,
Mm-hmm.
and watching this character push people away is until he finds the one person that he can't push away, and that's
Mm-hmm.
Robin Williams, as Sean. And Robin Williams is my favorite actor
Mm-hmm.
ever, and it's his best performance.
Oh yeah, by
I mean,
far. Yeah.
people, they talk a lot about Dead Poet Society, which he's really great
Oh,
in,
he's phenomenal in that. Yeah.
but I think that there's such a genuine performance put into Sean and Good Will Hunting, of
Mm-hmm.
being this like amazing therapist that truly like doesn't want to care about someone again because of his wife, and he finds that he cares about this boy Will, and
Mm-hmm.
not only that he cares about him, but Will ends up pushing him to change his life too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got these great moments between them, and then of course Ben Affleck in the movie is great as Chucky, and Ben Affleck and him, they have that speech by the car about, the best part of my day is the
Mm-hmm.
5 seconds I walk to your door and I hope you're not there. And the setup of that to the payoff is so great that eventually Dark
Mm-hmm.
Knight Rises copied the exact same thing into their script, which was the weirdest thing in the world, when Alfred's like, I hope to see you when I'm drinking my little bloke out in France, and I look up and there you are, no goodbye, no nothing. It's like, you stole that from Good Will Hunting.
That's
Like,
totally, yeah,
it's
100%.
so funny. But I think Good Will Hunting is this beautiful drama, and then his relationship with Minnie Driver, and
Mm-hmm.
it's another person that like won't let him push her away until he eventually like lies to her to do it, and it's great, and it's got this beautiful resolution. It's, I don't know. Good Will Hunting to me is a near perfect film.
It's a damn good movie. It just really is.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
there's no way around it.
And I think the story about like, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck writing it because they were bored is like so funny. And like there's just little secrets about like they put in like a hardcore orgy sequence into the middle of the movie when they were pitching it to studios to see if people were actually reading their script. So like they had like at one point like all of the guys just start having sex with each other in the middle of
What?
their script, because they wanted to see if people were reading the script, and a lot of people weren't. So finally, like, sadly, now we hate them, the Weinsteins. Obviously, we rightfully hate them, but
Right.
they produced the movie,
Yeah.
and they called Matt Damon and Ben Affleck about like, the movie's really good, but this one scene makes no sense. And they're like, yeah, we put it in there to like mess with people.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just like some stuff like that is just great. So I don't
Yeah.
know. That's where Good Will Hunting is number two.
No, it makes sense. It's a really good movie. It's really fantastic. I always, yeah, it just is.
It's not your
Robin
fault.
Williams is really great. It's like one of those movies, you're gonna hate me for saying this, but I always kind of like forget about. Like I know you're gonna hate me, but like it's
Is
not
it
like
weird to
always.
break up with you on camera?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
it
Okay. Just
is.
making sure. We'll do it afterwards.
We'll do it after. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
But it's like it's a movie that kind of forget about. I think it's because I don't know, like I feel like it kind of because of its reputation, like I feel like it never got like enough praise like for like what it is. Like I think you ask everyone point blank, and they're like, "Oh, Good Will Hunting," or like, "Oh, that's a great movie." But like, I feel like it's like doesn't have like never had that prestige as like other movies did to like
Yeah, I feel like
be like topical.
when I tell people it's like my favorite movie or one of my favorite movies, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, that's a good movie." Like everyone forgets that like exists.
Yeah,
I totally
exactly.
understand, which is a
Yeah,
shame.
it is a shame.
It's damn good.
That's it. It is. It's a damn good movie.
Yeah, it's good. So what's your number two,
Seal of
Madeline?
approval.
Madeline, what is your number two?
My number two is Some Like It Hot with Marilyn
Ah,
Monroe, like way, way old movie, which we watched together. And
it's
parts of
good.
it are great, and parts of it do not hold up. Part of
No,
it, some of it is still real sexist and racist and stuff like that because it was made in like the 50s.
yeah,
So parts of it are like not good. Yeah. Yeah.
but parts of it are very good and it holds up to this day.
Exactly. Like I was talking about this with you. Like it has this weird, like you see it if you look at it through the lens of like when it came out, like it's actually kind of really progressive. But then
Mm-hmm.
you look at it from today's lens, it's like, oh, there are so many problems with this movie. It's like when it comes to like sexism, racism, and like a little bit of like transphobia and stuff. And it's
Yeah,
like there's a lot of transphobia, which is not good. But I think like the humor and like the situations they're put into is like really, really comical, and I just think it's hysterical.
well, I
It's
think
really,
a testament to that movie is how well the comedy holds up because a lot of comedies from back then, some of them are still hold up obviously, but like
mm-hmm.
comedies changed so much over the years.
Right, yeah,
And the fact that the comedy of Some Like It Hot like holds up in that regard, where like
yeah,
I watched it for the first time ever. I had no emotional attachment to it like a
mm-hmm.
year ago, and it was making me laugh out loud because it's genuinely hilarious. And so I think
Yeah, it
like that's a
really is.
testament
Yeah,
to. And it's a really beautifully filmed movie. Like it's
mm-hmm.
black and white, so it's hard for us to appreciate the cinematography. But like it's
Right,
really well shot and like directed and
mm-hmm.
acted obviously as well. And
Yeah,
yeah, it's a
yeah.
great choice.
No, it's really good. I just like all the scenes where like they're like Marilyn Monroe and the guy are on the boat, and then it pans over to his friend who's like covering for him, and they're dancing, and it's just that
Mhm.
music. It's like da 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 da, and they're in all these like weird situations.
It does do the one
Great.
thing that like old movies do that I just can't stand though, and it is a very 50s like 60s thing, is where like the plot like it hits this like climax, right? And it's
Right.
like crazy climax, and then the movie just ends. Like
Yes,
like
it's
they
done.
wrap up everything within like 5-10 seconds, and then like they ride away on a boat and the movie ends. And you're like, oh, all right, that's
Yeah,
the movie. And every like that's just how movies were made back then. It's so
I
like
know.
old school, but it's just so funny.
It's so
Like
stupid.
everything reaches like the apex of like craziness and how are they gonna get out of the situation? Oh my god. Oh, they're out of it? Movie's over.
Yep, that's
It's like,
it. They're
oh,
done.
okay.
It's like
There's no like real
there's no
resolution afterwards.
consequences. Yeah, there's no
Yeah,
consequences to like the actions. It's like, oh
yeah.
nope, it's just done.
It's just over. It's like, all
Yeah,
right, cool.
yes. They're gonna fade off into the sunset.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny.
All right,
All right.
Jake, what is your number one movie?
Bum, bum, ba-da, ba-da-da, bum, bum. My number one favorite movie of all time is Avengers Endgame.
Yes.
Um, which is very obvious if people know me. The reason though, I think it's an interesting movie when I think you lose credibility a little bit when you're like, my favorite movie is an Avengers movie. But for me, it's not just the 3 hours that it was in the theater. It's the hype leading up from Infinity War to Endgame was
Mm-hmm.
so fun to be a part of like, it reminds me a lot of like a whodunit thing, like or like a almost like a crime show, right? Where it's like
Uh-huh.
we know they're gonna solve the case, right?
Yeah.
We know the Avengers are gonna win. Everyone's like, well, the people that got dusted didn't really die, and it's like, well, no shit. They're not gonna kill off Black Panther after one movie. Like, yeah, okay, but
Yeah.
it's how they're gonna do it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it was this. I mean, obviously, it was a cultural phenomenon where like
Right.
everyone and my mother went to go see Avengers Endgame in theater because like
Like the first weekend too.
yes, I mean
Yeah.
obviously like they were able to it grossed $1 billion in the first weekend, but they were able
Yeah.
to give out the numbers before Sunday morning for what it
Mm-hmm.
grossed this weekend because it was sold out everywhere.
Yep.
It's insane.
Yep.
But I think what Avengers Endgame did was something that's never been done and probably won't ever be done again. Like I'm very much like, looking forward to the Phase 4 stuff of Marvel, but I know that it's never going to be this good again.
Yeah. No.
Because it took these 22 movies of storytelling from Iron Man 1 to this and like this great there's some ups and downs. Obviously, we got Thor Dark World in there and stuff,
Yeah.
but this
Which they
whole landscape,
incorporate into it, which is incredible.
right? And that's the thing where like it paid so much respect to this series of 22 movies that like
Mm-hmm.
You know, my mom was like, I want to watch Avengers. Like, well, how do I get caught up? And like, I gave
Yeah.
her a list of stuff, right? And it was like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't really need to watch like, Dark World. Thor really doesn't need to be important until like Ragnarok and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like watching that movie of Endgame. It's
Yeah.
like, oh no, Dark World's important.
Yep.
Like, which blows my mind. Like to say like Dark World, like you kind of need to watch it because like it's not good, and like you got to warn people it's not good. But
Yeah.
it's just now we're just talking about Dark World. But like, Endgame made all these movies important. It made this series like worth it, and not only like, in my opinion, I know we disagree a little bit on this, but like Infinity War was insane, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, how the hell did they pull that off? They made a movie
Yeah.
with like 40 main characters and it worked,
Right.
and then it's like, surely they can't stick the landing though. Like
Mm-hmm.
Infinity War was so good, Endgame can't be that good. Like it
Mm-hmm.
can't, and
Yeah.
it was, and it not only was, but like it gave like characters that we love like send offs that some were obvious, but some we weren't expecting, and like
Right.
you really can't spoil anything now because all the trailers they show everything. Like
Yeah.
having Tony Stark's arc be completed by like sacrificing himself is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly for me, I'm a big Captain America like movie fan, and having Cap go off and like he is no longer going to be in these movies because he was selfish, and
Yeah.
it's this cool parallel of like the selfish and the selfless.
Right.
They cross because of what they learned through each other,
Yeah.
and like that's what the MCU is about. It's not about like beating up on Thanos. It's like
Mm-hmm.
what these characters kind of become. I think that's really cool. I think it's a cool message, and the way they incorporate everything is just brilliant.
Yeah.
So
It's phenomenally done. And like I love that when he's like passing off the torch, which is like his shield.
Shield, and that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And we'd be remiss to even not mention, but like Thor and what they do with Thor and Fat Thor in this movie, it
It's so
goes
good.
along like the Baby Yoda stuff with like
Yeah.
the Mandalorian. It's like, how the hell do they keep that a secret? Because like
Yeah.
he is Fat Thor for most of the movie, and no one
Exactly.
ever knew. Like I watched every trailer 15, 20 times with Endgame. And you know this because I told you everything
Yes.
about it. I annoyed the hell out of you as some people move on, but not us, which is
There's
the greatest trailer ever
every
made.
time I talk to them, guys.
Oh my
Every single
God.
fucking time.
This is such a good
Sorry,
trailer.
it had to be said.
Yeah, that's fine. But then I think like going in with Thor and like that's this big mystery that like I didn't even know. And like I was shocked in the theater. I was like, I've watched every trailer 45 times. Like this is crazy. So for me, Endgame is my favorite movie. I know it's not the best movie ever made. It's
Hmm.
not a movie that I can tell anybody to just go watch, but for me, it's this
Yeah, it's like
monument.
a marathon to get to
Yeah,
like to understand why it's so good.
yeah, it's an achievement.
Yeah, it
Sure.
really is.
So,
Yeah.
all right, what is your number one favorite movie of all time, Madeline?
My number one movie is Moonstruck.
Very similar to Endgame.
So similar.
Yeah.
They're like exactly the same. Oh my God.
I know.
No, it's very different. It's extremely different.
Yeah. So what is it? Give us a pitch.
So Moonstruck is with Cher. Remember? Do you guys remember Cher? Back before she had like a fuck ton of plastic surgery and looked real weird.
She still has a lot of plastic surgery in this movie, but not
She
that
does.
much.
Yeah, she does. Not that much though. It's like at the point where it's like, it's okay. Like we can like it still looks good. Like it's like we can be okay with this. It's not like now where you're just like this doesn't look good at all.
Like 10 years ago, Courtney Cox.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But so she is getting engaged. It's like the very first scene in the movie. She gets engaged to this guy. She doesn't love him. That's like a big point. And so she has to invite his brother to the wedding, and there's bad blood between them. They haven't talked in 5 years. And he can't invite his brother because he's going off to see his dying mother in Italy. And she basically ends up falling in love with his brother. And it's about like kind of the madness that ensues of like this whole thing, which that's not actually, that's like my least favorite part of the movie is like the whole romantic plot of it. I come from an Italian family, and like the similarities that they draw between like this family and my family is like scary sometimes.
Yes.
Like, he can attest, like it's really scary some of the things that happen, and I just like love the comedy of it too. It like comes back in like with the dad, the grandpa, the nonno is from Italy, and like he doesn't speak English really well. He's just talking in Italian the entire time, and he just he reminds me a lot of my family, just like kind of like bumbling, like I don't know what's going on, things are happening, and it just like it hits so close to home for me that like that's why I love it so much. So that's like, and I just think it's a good movie in general too.
Very much so.
Yeah. So
It's very funny. It's very whimsical. I think like
it
it has
is.
such a lightheartedness to it, like
Yeah.
where it's dealing with these very complex things and the stakes are high, but they're never like annoyingly high. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
like everything
It's
that
very
happens with like
grounded. Yeah.
her mother and like her father, like they should shatter everything, but like they kind of play with it in like a fun way. And I
Yeah.
think that there's really good comedic beats in that movie as well. It's
Yeah.
a fun movie.
The mom is phenomenal in it.
Yeah,
Oh, what's her name? Olivia Dukakis. I think
sure.
is that her name?
Yeah, sounds like a good name.
Oh, I think that's her name. She's phenomenal in it. She's incredible. I love it.
Yeah. No, me
She's
too.
also in. Oh, I think I've made a mistake.
Whoa!
I,
I don't think that's allowed.
I,
You want to add? Are you adding a sixth movie?
I,
Can't be a part of this.
I do have to add a sixth movie, but I think I will replace it with a movie. Can I? I'm gonna do it because it's my show.
Sure, it's your
So,
show.
it's my show. I'm gonna replace Some Like It Hot with Steel Magnolias.
Ah, okay.
I, for some reason, forgot about this when I was making my list, but Olivia Dukakis is also in this movie. And that's what reminded me. It's a fucking phenomenal movie. It's great.
It is a good movie.
I'm real upset that I forgot about it.
I don't really, yeah. Well, it's really your favorite movie that you forgot about it.
Shut up.
Those are our top 5 movies.
Woo! You can find us on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify under Side Escape. This has been Cinema Realness. Thank you for tuning in.